Good evening, everybody. This is Kathy L. Murphy, the Pulpwood Queen, reporting from my home here in East Texas called Murphy's Law. And right now, I've got our guest author tonight, which is Henry G. Brinton. He is a pastor at the First Presbyterian Church in Fairfax, Virginia, and will tell us all about where he's at. And joining us is author also as a listening audience member, Stephanie Chance of Mamma Mia, Saints, Sinners, and Escapades. So we'll begin with your story, Henry. Henry is our guest author for the week on Breathless Bubbles and Books, which is our Facebook group page where we pair our reading books with great wine. It's an award-winning winery, and Henry has been posting all week, and the stories, Henry, have touched my heart. Your book, City of Peace, is one I think everybody should read. I wish schools and colleges would pick it up for course adoption. You know, I've been thinking a lot about your books and how they're like a bridge. They're instead of burning bridges like so many things have happened in the United States this year, your book is actually building a bridge to help us understand different religions, different cultures, different people. So how did this, first of all, tell us where you are.
Well, I am in the town of Occoquan in Northern Virginia, right near a bridge over the Occoquan River. So you picking up on that is an important image in the book. As you've said so many times, Kathy, it's all about the story. And I fell in love with the story of the town of Occoquan when my wife and I moved here 5 years ago. We live in this town of about 1,000 people, nestled into a corner of the vast Washington, D.C. area. But our little town has its own integrity. It's a town that's been on this spot since 1734.
Wow.
And has a lot of great history. One story I love to tell comes from the period of time right before the Civil War. It was the election of 1860. Wow. And Abraham Lincoln was the Republican candidate for president, as you all know. The country was about to come apart and Virginia was about to secede from the Union. Well, Occoquan is this little town that has always had its own mind and always gone its own way, even during very difficult times. And in that year, 1860, there were a lot of Quakers living in Occoquan who were abolitionists. So they did not support the institution of slavery. And they went to the polls for that election and voted as part of Prince William County, which is a large county here in Northern Virginia. And Abraham Lincoln got only 55 votes from all of Prince William County, and they all came from Occoquan.
Wow.
So this is a town that's not afraid to do the right thing, even at personal cost. And that excites me, that inspires me. And we're in an equally fractured time in our nation's history today. We might have hoped that the recent election would bring people together in a kumbaya kind of moment, but it hasn't happened. We're still divided as a country. Red states and blue states are not seeing eye to eye. And that division pains me. It really pains me because it divides families, it divides communities, it divides states, it divides our entire country. And so we need to find a way to build bridges, as you have said. And that is really the inspiration behind my book, which is a cozy mystery. It is a murder mystery that turns into a terrorism thriller. And the challenge is, how can this community survive?
That's you pitched that just perfect, because it hit all those points that drive the story home. How did you get the title City of Peace, by the way? I probably asked you this before, but it takes me 5 times to remember things. So share that again, please.
Yeah, well, there's another great story there. as you said to the listeners and viewers today, I'm a pastor. I was an undergraduate at Duke University back in the late 70s, early 80s. Really fell in love with religious studies and had the chance to go on an archaeological dig in the northern part of Israel, the Galilee region, where Jesus grew up. And that really brought the world of the Bible alive to me in a powerful way. I began to see that all these stories we hear in Sunday school and in church growing up are really grounded in the real world, in the rocks and the food and the people and the animals of a really rich and historical place. And so that started me on the road to becoming a pastor, and I've never looked back. I've loved this work. But as a student of archaeology, I learned about a city in the Galilee region of northern Israel, the city called Sepphoris. And Sepphoris was a Jewish town back in the time of Jesus, as most of the towns and cities were. But they were facing occupation by the Roman rulers. And of course, that story comes out in the New Testament stories. We know how cruel Rome was and how there was so much revolution and upheaval. Jesus himself was a victim of a Roman crucifixion. But the people of Sepphoris decided to go a different route. They did not participate in the revolution against Rome. They found a way to make peace with the Roman occupiers. And because of that, they became known as the City of Peace.
Oh, I love this. I love it.
And because they did not engage in warfare, but found a way to live with the Romans, they survived that time of great upheaval and went on to become a center of great Jewish scholarship and religious life for many, many centuries.
Wow.
So I think that the city of Sepphoris, this ancient city, has a lesson to teach us today. We can learn how to be cities of peace if we find ways to develop relationships at the local level across the boundaries of race and religion and culture. And that's a challenge that I brought with me into my book. And readers who get into the book will see very quickly that even though the town of Occoquan in Northern Virginia is a very small town, it's a very racially and culturally diverse town, similar to much of the Washington, D.C. area and a lot of other major metropolitan areas. But what I love about telling the story here in Occoquan is I get to bring the small town focus on relationships into the big issues of the day and how we can build some bridges and make for peace in a very fractured time in our nation's history.
Well, I've always felt that when authors share their stories, when we get to hear the words from their mouths, it adds, it's kind of like when you read a book, it's like a blurry picture. And then you share it with somebody else and it starts coming into focus because they've got a different perspective than you've got because of their life experiences. And then you bring the author in and all of a sudden it's fully focused and you get the bigger picture of the intent of the story. And that's why as far as we know, humans are the only ones that share stories. It's what makes us human. The fact that we communicate and we share stories. I mean, in every historical context, whether historical or religious or culture, everything was through oral storytelling to when they first started writing down the stories of Jesus times, or it still amazes me that the Bible was written completely way after when it actually happened. And you think about if somebody wrote 100 years from now the story of what happened the year of COVID, would it be exactly right? I don't know, but I feel like the words are coming from a higher place. But what is interesting to me about your book and your story is that it I couldn't stop thinking about it when you were writing, each of your stories, the tiger poem, and it made me think of this film that I watched when I first started watching Bollywood films. I found this actor named Shah Rukh Khan that I admired, and he'd done a film in the States called My Name is Khan. Khan. It's Khan, but it's kind of a guttural Khan. And it's a story about a Muslim man who moves to the United States and marries a Hindi hairdresser. In fact, because of it, I'm going to do my whole film show Saturday night on talking about your book and then how it spurred me to watch that film again, because that film is like a bridge. And I think that when you toss the pebble out into the pond, these ripples happen, and then it takes you to another place or another book or another study or a trip, whether to the Holy Land. I mean, I did the Adam Hamilton trip to Bible study where we all went to the Holy Land, and I was so shocked because, in my mind's eye, everything is still in biblical times, and I'm just seeing people on donkeys, and then I'm seeing freeways and stuff. I go, what? There's freeways? I was just flabbergasted, but that's coming from my small place of how I was raised. And when you come from a place where you're just in this, a small place, you see the world only from your own experiences or your own readings in school. And just like the Civil War, when I was in school, I think maybe we covered it for 3 days in 3rd grade. It wasn't now the Korean War or the Vietnam War. Oh, I heard all about those wars, but I didn't hear really very much about any others. And then I moved to Jefferson, Texas, which is very much a Southern town where the Civil War, they do reenactments. I mean, I had to do my history quick, but it's true. And like Stephanie takes these trips to all these places in Europe, and we've gone to some places that, where I just can't, the churches, the basilicas, all the places that we've been, it just all of a sudden brings everything that I learned when I was reading the Bible or reading other books. It brings it all into full focus. So I'm very excited about what you're writing. Now, what has been the response from your community about your book?
Well, I'll start by saying that interfaith relations are very important to me personally. There's a lot of my heart in this book. And the church I serve, Fairfax Presbyterian, is a church that is also committed to building bridges with people of other faiths and nationalities. And so we have a close relationship with a Muslim mosque in Fairfax.
Oh my gosh, I've got to come and visit you. That's all.
I hope you will.
I will.
And just this past week, for instance, we teamed up and did an evening of feeding the homeless in our community on one of these cold winter nights. And it's just so beautiful to work side by side with these people of such love and faith who care equally about the poor and the hungry and the homeless. And even though we might not agree on everything theologically, we can work together to serve a world in need.
I hope the world hears this testimony, because it's everything I believe in. And I'm just, we have gotten so that if somebody doesn't believe the same thing, block you on Facebook, and I'm stopping myself and I'm having conversations with people. And sometimes I get totally surprised, by what makes people make these statements that I don't understand. And I think it's about accepting that we agree to disagree.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with having some different theological beliefs. Muslims are going to have a different view of what's at the center of their faith, and it's going to be different from what Christians and Jews believe. But that doesn't mean we can't work together to serve the needy around us, and to find in the course of doing that, that we have a lot more in common than we have separating us.
Absolutely.
So this is a long way of me answering your question, which was a beautiful question. What's the reception been like?
Yes.
Well, I took the book soon after publication to the mosque, and I did a presentation to a room full of my Muslim friends. And I was very nervous about that because, as you know, Kathy, there are some very strong Muslim characters in my book. And I wanted very badly to portray them accurately. I did not want any one-dimensional characters. I didn't want any cardboard characters. I wanted everyone to be real. And so I presented the book to this Muslim group, and it was a woman from the mosque who was my dialogue partner. And she picked up on one particular scene that I had written where my main character, Harley Camden, the Methodist minister, close to your heart being a Methodist, Kathy, Harley Camden is talking with a Muslim man, Muhammad Bayati, about the nature of God. And the woman interviewing me was offended by my characterization. And that made me even more nervous. Well, two of the imams in the room began to debate with each other in Turkish about my characterization of the Muslim nature or understanding of God. And you can just imagine I was really sweating at that point. But then they turned back to me and to the woman interviewing me, and they said, on this particular point, Pastor Brinton is correct. So that made me feel really good. At the end of that evening, the members of the mosque were just lovely. And a young woman said in her response, a woman in the audience said that she felt that my characterization of the Muslim characters was accurate. And she really appreciated that. And that made me feel so good because I have such love and respect for these Muslim neighbors, and I wanted them to see themselves in my book and to feel that they were being portrayed accurately. Not everybody's a good person in my book. It would be a boring book if everybody was good.
Well,
I mean,
there is no black and white.
No, that's right. I want
shades of gray in between.
I want everyone to be three-dimensional.
Right.
But that was a very pleasing early response to the book. And beyond that, I've spoken to Jewish audiences, to Christian audiences, to completely secular audiences. And one of the responses that meant the most to me was from a gentleman who said that he was not a particularly religious individual, but he really appreciated the book because he said the book gave me a window into a world I would not be able to see any other way. A window into the world of a Methodist pastor struggling to serve his congregation, to heal his community. And for him, that gave the book value because he was able to see something he couldn't see any other way. And I'm so glad Stephanie's here because, you know, I think that's what all great writing is. That's what all great art is. It's a window. It's a window into a world that would be invisible to us any other way. So that was a very pleasing response and opened my eyes to what great writing and great art can do for all of us as we read, as we look, as we experience what is being created.
one of the biggest debates when I was went back to college was, what is art? And I was surprised at all the different answers that I heard. But to me, art is a way that we express ourselves. And I really feel like, especially with me personally, because I don't know where it comes from. I think it comes from God, because I create things, the art that I love looks nothing like the art that I create. And I have, because the worlds that I'm creating in my paintings are very abstract and almost fantasy like, but yet the arts that I love is, more traditional things. I love flowers, and but I see beauty in everything. So to me, art is a way of creating things that you want to see out in the world. And I think that's the way it is with stories. We write the story we want to read, and we want to, and I had one author, it's really funny, I won't mention her name, but she said, I wrote the story the way I wanted it to happen, not the way it actually did. And I think that's what we're all looking for. And I just went down another rabbit hole. I've been on these Indian films, and then I watched this film called, you got to see it, it's called Finding Joe. And it's a documentary on Joseph Campbell. And I remember when those books were real popular in the 90s, The Power of the Myth, The Hero's Journey. So I ordered all of them. So I'm getting ready to go down a Joseph Campbell trail, because he talked all about finding your bliss in life. Bliss is not happiness or euphoria. It's finding the thing in your life that gives you the purpose to jump out of bed every day, like we do, Stephanie, at the crack of dawn. I mean, I bound out of bed every day thinking, today I got to get this done. There's no thought in my mind of how much money am I going to make today, or, how many books am I going to sell? How many books of my authors am I going to sell? It's all on just sharing the stories, because the riches, the riches that I found on this planet is the relationships that I've built with my book club, right, Stephanie? I mean, Stephanie's like my best friend now, and she just lives down the road. But I can't imagine how lonely and vacant at 64 my life would be if I didn't have my friends, and these stories. And, we've all been distancing. Are you doing church online, or are you actually having church?
We are online on Sunday mornings. We have done some gathered outdoor services,
Good.
but just weather permitting. So we really feel we need to keep everybody safe. And so we are online exclusively with our regular Sunday morning services. And that's the service I'll be sharing with you and the Pulpwood Queens in January.
Which I'm so excited about telling everybody that's listening today. I had many emails saying to me, please, when you schedule the online virtual girlfriend weekend book club convention, please don't do anything on, church times like Sunday morning. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. And then I got to thinking about it. Every year when I have girlfriend weekend, usually we end on Saturday night. And I invite everybody to go with me to church wherever I am. And I usually go to the Methodist church, but if there wasn't one there, I go to another one. But I invite all the authors to go with me, and I go, and wear your Sunday crowns, which, is your hats or whatever. And we've done that. So I thought, my gosh, your story is so important. Why don't we go to Henry's church for Sunday morning? So we're going to do that, Stephanie. Yes. He's going to give us a link where we can go online and join Henry at his church. How cool is that? And that's for all of us that are social distancing, and people that want to go to their own church, that's fine. But I just thought that would be, I've had my authors speak at churches during girlfriend weekend, like Missy Buchanan and Judy Christie and Shelley Rushing Tomlinson. And they, Shelley is, we're not all the same religion, but I feel like when I used to run a Christian book festival, I brought in, people from the Catholic faith, people from the Jewish faith, people from all over, Native American, Indian spirituality. I brought it all in because I think if we really look at the big picture, aren't we all talking about the same power? I mean, that's the way I see life. I always look at the big picture. And so I am really excited we're going to have you for a church on this.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'll give you all a shout out from the pulpit at Fairfax Presbyterian Church.
That's all right.
Because one thing we've loved about this, well, I wouldn't say we've loved it, but one of the silver linings of this pandemic is that our church has been able to reach people through video that we never would have reached any other way.
I'm hearing this over and over.
We have people worshiping from England and from Germany and all across the United States, and it's just a beautiful thing. So we're not alone. A lot of churches are having this experience, but it's a real silver lining to an otherwise very difficult time.
Well, he sent me the link to his church today that I posted, and there's this pretty little church, I just think I'm a visual person because I'm an artist. So to see pictures, I've even suggested that he do a video walking tour so we can just kind of see the town and the neighborhood of where your story is set. I think that would be really something I'd love to. We'll just have to have you come back. But I'm really glad that you joined me tonight and you shared the story. But you've got a new book, and it's going to be about the environment. And is it about the water, or is it?
Yes, well, Occoquan being a river town is in a very vulnerable spot. And the threat to the town in this new book is an environmental threat. It's a devastating flood. And the discovery that needs to be made is what caused this flood and what can be done to prevent future disasters. So Harley Camden, the Methodist pastor, returns, as do a lot of the characters, and they need to figure out what has happened and what they can do to prevent future disasters. So I'm excited about that, to look forward to.
I'm very excited. I want to get a copy. When you get that manuscript ready, I want to read it. And
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And for everybody that's listening today, I read a lot. I've read for 20 years. And I think when I look at Henry's book now that it's going to be a series, I think to myself, what are some other series by people that had a religious kind of theme? And I think of Jan Karon. I think of my Quaker friend, Philip Gulley. Totally different style of writing. And then I look at your book, and it is too a totally different style. But what these books do is they help us understand faiths and peoples that are not the same always of ourselves. So you're putting a lot of good out. Oh, you've got your book. I was looking for mine, and I've got so many stacks going right now, I couldn't find it. Good for you, Stephanie.
Yeah.
You've made my day, Stephanie.
I'm enjoying it. I'm reading it, and I'm enjoying it very, very much.
Oh.
Stephanie is a really big reader.
Yeah.
I mean, most authors are. And in fact, this month, I was writing down all the authors' addresses today, because everybody who signs up for Girlfriend Weekend this year, and all the authors are, they'll get a copy of my February 2021 Pulpwood Queen Book of the Month, which is Think Like a Monk, which is by my favorite podcaster, Jay Shetty, who was a monk. He did this. He dropped out of, he got his college MBA and dropped out and gave away everything he had to become a monk. And the story is fascinating, but all the good that he's putting out into the world is phenomenal. And he has these podcasts and shows, and I'm a big fan of Jay's, and I reached out to him to see if I could get him to come to Girlfriend Weekend, and he's an international bestseller. So they told me that he charges a lot, and he's worth it. He's worth it. And I said, well, you know, I I can't pay anybody for coming to Girlfriend Weekend, but I still am going to pick his book because it's that good. And they said, well, how many people have you got coming, Kathy? To make a long story short, I've got 250 copies to give away. They sent me. My whole art studio is stacked with these, so I've got to get them out this coming week to everybody who signs up because it's our February. We're picking 12 books of the month and 12 international books of the month. Because we're an international book club, it's time for us to be more global, more diverse, and through the sharing of our stories, we can find our city of peace. You know? So, and another thing I think I mentioned to you last time when I talked, what a great Bible study this would be for Sunday school, for adult Sunday school. And I know my orange duffel bag, Sam Bracken did a series of Bible study with his book, and then Ronnie Hall in Denver's passed, but he wrote Same Kind of Different as Me. He took that book and they did a Bible study around that story of helping the homeless shelters. And then Shelley Rushing Tomlinson is another one of our authors that also did a Sunday school. In fact, my church, I went to church one day and they go, the other Sunday school class is doing a new Bible study with this author. Do you know her, Shelley Rushing Tomlinson? I go, oh my God, that's one of my authors. Would you like to have her come? I mean, I know her. She lives in Louisiana. So these connections are amazing. And we're putting a lot of good out into the world. And I just want to encourage you. I'm your biggest fan. I'll do anything I can to help you. I thank you for joining me. What would you like to share as your final comments on this journey that you're on with your books?
I think I would challenge people to find a way to sit down and have a conversation with someone different than yourself. Before the pandemic, we could sit down and have a cup of coffee.
I've got my coffee here.
We'll get back to that. It's a little harder to have a shared meal in this particular environment we're in, but we'll get back to that. And I think that shared meals and table conversations are transformative. I believe that when we talk to each other in a classroom or on a debate stage, things can get very adversarial. But when you sit down and break bread with someone, you discover that God is alive and well in them. And you have a lot more in common with them than you would ever dream possible. So that would be my challenge to people, to find a way and sit down and have those conversations, not to debate, but to simply get to know one another and to discover what we do have in common. That to me is the secret to peace in our families, in our communities, in our nation, and in our world.
And I think that's exactly what this was tonight, is you and I, every time I talk to you, I learn a little bit more. I even learn more on your blogs that, for everybody who's listening, he's our week's host on Breathless Bubbles and Books on Facebook, and wonderful stories and just a springboard for others to share stories, because not only are we sharing our author stories, we're sharing stories about ourselves. Because every time you say something, I've just got some story I'm dying to tell. But that's what it's about, is sharing each other's lives.
And that's really that's where you discover those commonalities. It's by sharing stories. It's not by debating. It's not by trying to win an argument, but sharing your story, being willing to tell the truth as you've experienced it and hear that truth from another person. So thank you, Kathy, for the opportunity to blog on the Breathless Bubbles site. It's been a lot of fun. I got a few more coming your way.
You keep
And
them coming. You can go as through the weekend if you want. I just love them. I know you're going to be busy with Sunday getting everything ready for your online service and stuff. But are you doing your Bible studies online, or how are you doing that?
so we've decided for us it works best to tape the services on Saturday, because then our tech person can add all the music, which means a lot to people. But the Bible studies and classes are all by Zoom, same format we're using here tonight, and it works pretty well. Not as good as
I'm actually getting ready to upgrade to webinars. I paid for the premium, but I'm going to upgrade because I've got to make sure this girlfriend weekend is going to go off without any glitches, and everything. I'm actually going to get a new computer too to make sure, because my computer's getting slow. It's old. It's an old Mac. So, but that's important that I keep up with the technology and everything. But I'm so thankful that you agreed to come on. Stephanie, I'm glad you're here. Do you have any questions for Henry or anything while you're reading? Or I know you read everything that I throw at you. So
I've just enjoyed you so much every day. I look forward to getting to read your blurbs and stuff, and I'm loving your book. And I was raised Methodist all my life.
Okay.
And and I just love it. I love the Bible history. I just absorb it, and I absolutely love it. I love taking the Americans to the places where the apostles walked, and I love it. So I have been so excited hearing you every day, and thank you for this wonderful book. It's wonderful.
You are welcome. It really was a labor of love. Kathy talked about how as writers we need to follow our bliss, and I agree with that so much. This book was right from my heart, from the things that I care about, the things that I've seen that have made a big impression on me. One of the things that surprised me, since this is my first work of fiction, is that the characters that I created very quickly took on a life of their own. And they started going in directions I wasn't really expecting. And I feel like I developed a relationship with them.
They were talking to you.
Talking to me, yeah. Don't tell my congregation I have voices in my head, but
I hear it all the time.
It was beautiful because it was part of their integrity as characters, that once they started interacting, they took me in directions I wasn't expecting. I sort of had a sense of what the overall arc of the book was going to be. But then once these characters, Omar and Mohammed and Leah and Harley, started getting involved with each other, suddenly my early thoughts didn't make sense. And so I let them take me where they needed to go. And it was beautiful. I think that it became a much more creative enterprise, one that really enriched me as I was in the process of doing the writing.
One of the things I hear from authors all the time is that their spouse is their first reader. Does your wife read your books and give you feedback or comment? Or
she has done some. My adult daughter actually was more involved in feedback, and
really? That's interesting.
She's a tremendous reader. She'd be a great member of the Pulpwood Queens.
Get her on board. Next generation. Here we go.
That's right. But both my wife and my daughter have been great supporters of my writing, and I appreciate that. Here's a kind of a funny. This won't give away too much of the book, but Harley Camden, the main character, suffers a terrible tragedy right at the beginning of the book. He loses his wife and his daughter in a European terrorist attack. And that sends him tumbling into grief and anger, and eventually has to be moved by his bishop to the town of Occoquan to heal and to recover. Well, that led to an interesting conversation in my family. Because,
oh, gosh.
Because if I'm Harley, here I've killed off my wife and my daughter at the beginning of the book. Well, then my daughter and my son got into a conversation. My daughter said, "What's worse, to be killed off by dad or never to exist?" Because, of course, there's no son in the book. I do have a son. And so there's a philosophical question for you. What's worse, to get killed off or never to exist?
You know what my response to my daughters is when they tell me things about my writing? I go, why don't you write a book? Because they're, honest to God, they're better writers than I could ever dream of being, because they've just lived around authors and grown up around authors, and they're both, you know, their vocabularies are incredible, but that they need to write their book.
That's right. That's right. It's the author's prerogative. We have our characters live or die based on what we feel the story needs.
Right.
When I was reading I've just started in it, but I get the vision, you know, the way you described the little town is coming in like a Norman Rockwell, just a beautiful little cozy town with a beautiful little church.
Oh, the church is really cute. I just put the link up on Facebook from your website, your YouTube page, and it's just, you know, just what you expect to see. It's really neat.
Well, yeah. Kathy, I don't want to take too much of your time, but if you have just a minute, I actually have some pictures of Occoquan that I can share if you can do the screen share here.
I don't, yeah, how do you do that? Oh yeah, share screen. What do I do? Just hit it?
Well, you just say, let anybody share. I think it's you in control unless you let everybody share.
Okay, well, what do I click on? Just share screen?
Share screen, yep.
Okay. Okay, I've got share screen. Now what do I have to click? Just share?
You say, give me permission to share. It says, let anybody share. You click on the share screen, it'll give you some options.
Okay, let's see.
There you go.
Okay.
All right, so now give me
you are screen sharing. I'm learning. So where do,
okay. So go back to that, and now that's your screen you're sharing, but click on share screen and pick the option where I can share, or anybody can share.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out where that is. You may have gone beyond my let's see. Oh, there, maybe this. No.
On my end, it's showing your cursor going all over the screen.
Yeah, I'm trying. I says share screen. I hit that, and you are screen sharing. Participants 3, new share.
Yep, click on participants can share.
Okay, well, there's no participants can share button. I'm looking. Wait a minute. Let me see what's under more. Okay. Allow no, unmute, no. Gosh, we're going to have a meeting about this. I'm not finding it.
We'll do it another time, but
I do have. Man, I'm so sorry. I don't know how to do that. Now I just got to figure out how to get back to you. I can't even get back to where we were.
It says this Mac cannot connect to iCloud because of a problem with the Pulpwood Queens. That's what my screen says.
Probably needs a password. Oh, rats. Well, I'm back to meeting. Let me see if that works. Nothing's taking me back to the meeting. This is so weird. Oh, I'm so sorry. Let's see.
Well, if you
I can still see all of y'all over to the right in little bitty squares.
Yeah, I can see you both, but I also see your computer screen there.
I've totally messed it up. So, well, you know what? We're going to have to pick this up another time when I've learned a little bit more about this. So I'm going to say good night. This is going to download, and I will have it up on my Kathy L. Murphy YouTube channel, and then I'll be sharing it everywhere. So you can share it with all your fan base, and my apologies to whatever I did wrong here. So I've hit back to meeting. I've hit share screen. I've hit join. Nothing's happening. So I don't know what I've done wrong, but
Well,
nothing's coming back. That's so weird.
Well,
Okay,
it's been a
well,
great conversation. Thank you both, and always really good to be in conversation with both of you.
You
great
too. I
time.
enjoyed it
We'll be
tonight.
in touch. We'll be in touch, and we'll be watching on Breathless Bubbles and Books tomorrow, y'all. So
All right.
we'll see you then. Okay.
Sounds good.
Oh, hey, Rob!
There you go.
Got us back. Oh my God. I'm so thankful. Help, technology, people, come to me. Oh well. Anyway, this will be up on, everybody will get to see all my foibles and my lack of intelligence, but I enjoyed it very much, Henry.
Me too.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Great to see you, Stephanie.
Ciao.
And
Well, Merry Christmas and happy
Christmas.
holidays, everyone. I'll talk to y'all later.
Sounds good.
Bye-bye.
Bye.